On this episode of Sauce and Hench, we're back. We're talking about the Chicago Bears and who they should trade, and pretenders and contenders in the NBA. Sauce and Hench is coming up. It's been a while, but Sauce and Hench is finally back. It's been what, since the Super Bowl? February?
Yeah, we got since the Super Bowl, but we're back. I think they're calling this the greatest comeback since Jordan came back from baseball. So all
Did you send?
facts.
Did you remember? Yeah, did you send the fax? Because I know I don't have a faxing machine here.
We have a fax machine at the office. I sent it out this morning. We're back. That's all I said. That's all it said on it. And Sauce and Hench is back, baby.
It's a beautiful thing to say. I'm really excited. I don't even know what episode this is, but I guess we call this the second half. So episode 1 of the second half.
Second half is all over ESPN this morning. The breaking news. It's Stephen A. I think crapped his pants when he heard that we're back. The competition is back in the sports media world, so they're all crapping their pants because Sauce and Hench is back in it, man.
Well, talking about Sauce and Hench, it's not a Sauce and Hench episode until we talk about the team that's on your hat, the Chicago Bears, which it's been interesting. I think it's a good word.
Yeah.
Ross is another one.
Very interesting. I mean, it also wouldn't be a Sauce and Hench podcast unless we talked about just disappointment, I guess, as a Bears fan again.
I saw this picture of these babies dressed up as the Bill Swirsky superfans, and the caption was "Prepare them for a lifetime of pain." And I think that you and I are getting up there in the mid-20s, and we've seen the Bears go to a Super Bowl, but not even have gotten close since 2011 when they lost to the Packers in the conference.
Yeah, that's and then obviously 2018, but we lost in the first round. That was probably the team since 2006 for me that was like, I mean, a field goal away from, I think, being a Super Bowl contending team in that year. They were just riding on so many highs, but in the end, we missed a kick and now we're here. So
the double doink. It's the worst pair of words you can say to a Bears fan if you want to see an reaction out of them. So, with the NFL adding a game at the end of the year, now 17 games instead of 16, the deadline comes in week 9 instead of week 8. So the Bears have been discussing on who they could possibly be trading. Who do you think is most likely to get traded?
So I kind of got different sections or different levels of trades.
Okay.
It just depends on what the front office thinks they should do, because right now they are in, no matter how you twist it, how you spin it, if you look at the books, we're in win now mode. I mean, look at the guys on the teams. You have Robert Quinn, you got Khalil Mack, you have A-Rob, you got guys like Akeem Hicks. This is a win now mode team with contracts that we have. So you have the level of adding at the deadline, which I think I don't think they should do, but
no.
You go out and get guys. I mean, if you're going to add, you have to add to the offensive line, and you have to add weapons on the offense. You have to. You have to add playmakers on the offensive end on the offensive side of the ball. So there's that side of trade rumors, but there's also the side of where, I'm sort of leaning to, and it's sort of kind of blowing it up. Fields is young enough to where, from what I've seen, even though the stat line does not look pretty, I've sat here and watched the games that I've been able to watch, to where I've had a Sunday free and been able to watch 1 through 4 quarters. Fields is definitely a franchise quarterback. He has the make for it, the way he throws the ball. He has zip out of his hands. He can throw the deep ball, and he's just a freak athlete. He can make plays happen, and he is that franchise quarterback. I believe that. He shows a lot of signs that I believe in that. And he's also young enough to where you can kind of blow it up and trade for draft picks and build around Justin Fields. I think the worst possible thing would be just continuing to add veteran talent and hoping that the names you piece together win something, or get you that one win above 500 record and squeak into the playoffs. Um, but I mean, I would blow it up. Um, I would. I mean, it sounds terrible, but I think you have to consider putting a name like Khalil Mack on the trade deadline or on the trade market. You have to put A Rob on the trade market. You have to put um, names like one of the hottest players on the team right now who is having a great year. Robert Quinn, put him on the
Yeah,
controllable for the next 3 years. I want to say.
it was a pretty big deal he signed.
4 years, 94 mil. I want to say we signed him for. 3 years left of control, and I mean, if you're gonna make an argument for a guy for best, one of the best players on the team so far, he has to be up there. The dude's playing out of his mind. So you put those guys on the trade market, you're talking on the trade market, you're talking about some pretty good picks coming back your way, which is great to build around Justin Fields, which is your franchise quarterback. Do it the right way.
And I think what's the good thing about being the Bears fan is you can look at the team and evaluate. You still have some really young pieces that are still really good. Again, you've already mentioned Justin Fields, but it's also fair to say like David Montgomery is a franchise running back. He looked really well, really good, until he got hurt. I think Cole Kmet could be a great tight end. He can block, and when he does catch the ball, he's really hard to bring down. But then you're talking about a lot of the guys you listed off, 3 of the 4 are defensive guys, Mack, Quinn, and Hicks. But we still have Roquan, who is developing further and further along as a middle linebacker. And Jalen Johnson is a great corner. And Eddie Jackson's so relatively young as a safety. And he covers so much ground. And I don't know why he gets so much slack for sometimes missing tackles. He's the last line of defense. It shouldn't come down to him. It should just mean there was a bad play overall. But I just think that you already have the Cadillac, which is Justin Fields, but now you need the car insurance. And the O-line has just been horrible. It's been just downright bad because I think the reason why we run the ball so successfully is because guys get around our O-linemen so quickly that by the time they get into the backfield, the guy's already going to the line of scrimmage. And it's between him and the secondary. And I've seen a lot of people – someone said to me the other day, they were like, well, Justin Fields' numbers don't look great. I said, well, how many times is he going to get hit? And how many times is he going to have to run for his life because these guys are running these 5-yard in routes and he can't get it to them because the corners know what's coming.
I mean, look at the play that even made the 49ers game close, and it was this touchdown run.
Yeah.
That had no business being a touchdown, man. That was
and no business being a first down, let alone a touchdown.
Terribly blocked, terrible call play for a fourth and short, terribly called play, and he make but when you think of the offense, like where do you even start, man? Like where do you start with that O line? Because one of the guys I was most confident in at the start of this year is Cody Whitehair, and he's having a terrible year. I swear he's getting every time this has to be one of the years with the most flags he's ever had. Every time we bust a big run, there's a holding on Cody. So It's like, where do you even start with the O-line? You have to start from scratch.
Well, the worst part is it's not even that the Bears can get into 3-down territory. It's like you have to get the first down in the first 2 plays or make it a 3rd and short because once the Bears get into like a 3rd and long or a 3rd and medium, you already can just get ready, tell Pat O'Donnell, hey, you should start getting warmed up to go onto the field because there's a good chance there's going to be a blitz coming and none of our linemen are going to be able to pick it up. And then Fields is either going to get sacked or he's going to get rushed and have to get the ball out in like 1.5 seconds, which is impossible to get a good read in that amount of time. It's just
what are the routes the wide receiver. What are the routes the wide receivers are running on those? They're trying to run these deep routes.
Yeah.
So Fields is not going to. You got to like if you're trying to win this year, you got to understand Fields does not have the time to push the ball downfield with your offensive line.
No.
You have to draw up quick passes for him and not these long developing routes because he doesn't have time. No matter how much you want to think your offensive line is decent, they're not. They're terrible. So
yeah, and I think, and then we also went into the year with so many missing pieces. Like we got rid of Kyle Fuller, and who's been Dildor on the other side, and he's just been awful. Um, and I don't know why we brought back Jimmy Graham. He never does anything. He kind of just is on. He's like pretty much the tight end coach without the official title. And I did forget to mention we also have Darnell Mooney, who's also a great wide receiver. It's just that it's so hard to remember that we have good wide receivers because they don't get utilized enough because we can't get the ball in their hands and expect them to get the first downs.
Yeah. So I mean, to answer your question, another part about it too, I mean, if you really want to blow it up, I know he's hurt right now, but it's like I heard somebody say this the other day. I'm not on board with it because I look at an example of I think the Bears have potential to have a running back tandem like the Cleveland Browns with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. I think Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery, because Khalil Herbert, man, that dude's a dog.
He is a dog.
So him and David together, man, that could be what Cleveland has. And I mean, I would keep him, but I heard the other day you might even get to the point to where you want to build around Fields so much to where Khalil Herbert's kind of proved himself already. Maybe even see what Montgomery can get you on the trade deadline. I'm not a fan of that because I love David Montgomery and how he runs the ball. And I would love to have a tandem of Montgomery and Herbert, but I'm more on the side of at the deadline, go get as many picks as you can because you have to build around Justin Fields the right way.
Well, you alluded to it, and you said last year's Bears team, it was all right. We just finished above 500 and stuck into the playoffs just to get beat by the Saints. And as you being a Sox fan, as we can see over your shoulder, that's kind of the spot the Sox were in for so long. They were just sitting around 500, not good enough to make the playoffs, not bad enough to get a good enough pick. And eventually they just say, you know what, let's just blow it up and build around. And look what you guys got. You guys got to the playoffs for the first time since 2008, won a playoff game at home, and, considering some different circumstances, maybe the Sox go along further. For the Bears, I think our GM does a good job of drafting. He has been able to bring in good guys. Like Khalil Herbert was like a 6th-round pick, I think. And he's been great. Jalen Johnson was another steal. There's a good list of them. It's just right now we need a good coach, and we need to dump some salary. In the top 4 paychecks going out at the end of the season, go to the 4 guys you listed at the very beginning of that question. There's Akeem Hicks. Allen Robinson right now has a $17 million franchise tag on him. Khalil Mack, of course, and Robert Quinn. You already mentioned his contract already. So if we can dump those guys and get great draft picks in return and be able to go out and sign some good veteran offensive linemen, we could be right back into it within a year or two. And then that gives Justin Fields time to develop. I don't want to see Justin Fields get hit 30, 40 times a game. It shouldn't come down to me holding my breath like Derrick Rose after his ACL injury.
Yeah, no. And the all I'm asking for as a Bears fan is direction, man. Like 2 out of my 3 teams have done it. Now, one of the things that made me the most mad as a White Sox fan was I never had direction. That's what I was going to get to next was your jersey. Was as a Sox fan, I never had direction. It was always, like you said, 500 baseball, add an Adam Dunn, add a Todd Frazier, add a whatever, and we'll try to piece it together. They finally gave me direction, blew it up, rebuilt, and said, we're going to rebuild this team. It's going to be a team that can compete for a long time. I'm happy. I even know it was a terrible 4 years, a terrible losing. You gave me direction. You told me what was going to happen. The Bulls, we're going to get rid of the guard. So many years of think about we're going to add Rondo and Dwayne Wade to sneak into the 8th seed, but like just adding these guys that it just stopgaps. That's all Garpax ever did. That they never gave us a clear direction. When Derek got injured, those guys didn't know what to do. Their only hope was that Derek was going to carry them to the promised land. And when Derek got hurt, they had no direction and never gave Bulls fans a direction. What they do, Reinsdorf had the stones to clear house, put in new management, put in new coaches, and gave the Bulls a direction. Now look at the Bulls. They went out. They had the right people in the front office. In reality, should we have been able to go get a guy like DeRozan and Ball and convince him to come to Chicago? Not with the performance we had the year before, but we had
No.
the right guys in management to convince those guys to come to Chicago. They gave us a direction. They told us what was going to happen. They went out and did it. We went out and got DeRozan, Caruso, Ball, and built a team. The Bears have never given us any direction, man. They've never given us any direction, and that's all I'm asking for as a Bears fan. Tell me if you're going to go out at the deadline and say we're going at like we're win now. We have all these contracts, all these big defensive contracts. Then go do it. Go trade for the best offensive lineman that you can. Go trade for the best playmakers that you can, and do it. Don't just half ass it. Don't do that. And then vice versa. If you're gonna blow it up, blow it up. Don't be like, okay, we're gonna blow it up and just trade Allen Robinson. No, blow it up. Trade Robert Quinn, Khalil Mack, Allen Robinson. Trade them all if you're gonna blow it up. Give us a clear direction. That's all I want.
Yeah, and you mentioned all the Chicago teams except for the Cubs, of course, because that's my team. That's the only thing we don't agree on. But with the Cubs, that's what I said going in. You and I had that conversation. I was like, if the Cubs don't do good, a lot of these contracts are going to expire. Are we going to trade? Are we going to hold? What are we going to do? And they, you know what? Deadline came. They traded Rizzo to New York, Baez to the Mets, Bryant to San Francisco. And I said, perfect. Now I can go cry in my room for a bit and then know that in the future the Cubs are going to be back in it. And I don't have to worry about mediocre baseball and us holding on to these big contracts and not, being stalemated in one spot. So, again, that's what me and Joe think. The Bears should probably trade everyone that has a big contract and get in the direction that we want, which is any direction at this point. Just not, middle of the road with the side point in promised land, rebuild. And you know what? I think we're going left. We're going to the rebuild.
And one of my favorite guys to listen to, he's a Cubs guy, but he's earned my respect so many times because he's such a smart guy, is David Kaplan. I really respect everything that guy says, and he said it perfectly. Right now, if you blow it up at this deadline, you also better be firing Nagy. Fire Nagy, let Laser call the plays for the rest of the year and say, you have one job, Bill. You are developing Fields the rest of this year. That's all you're doing. Develop this kid and see if you earn a spot staying with this. And we're going to judge you and see how you do to see if you stay on this coaching staff. And while the season goes on, you put your best minds to it. McCaskey family, put your best minds to it to go and find the perfect person to be at the helm for Fields' career. That's what should happen. If Matt Nagy, I swear to God, if Matt Nagy is still the coach next year, there's no way. There's no way that he should be the coach next year, man.
After the performances against the Cleveland Browns and who else mauled us? Oh, the Buccaneers. There should be no way that bald man with the visor on should be on the Chicago Bears sideline going into the 2022-2023 season. I wholeheartedly agree. I knew this was going to come up because you and I completely trashed him last year. And I just remember I can't get that out of my head. It's just like whenever something bad happens to the Bears, he can never take ownership and say, you know what, it's my fault. I have never heard him say, that's on me. It's my bad coaching. It's always, we got to block better. We got to catch the ball better. Yeah, but what are you as a coach going to do to make sure that happens going into next week? You take responsibility. You're the head coach, not the assistant coach. It is your responsibility. That's your product on the field, and I want you to own up to it.
Yeah, that's perfectly said. And I mean, that should be that. The other on the Bears postgame show, Olin Kreutz, old offensive lineman for the Bears. One of my favorite things that he said is the McCaskey family should take serious offense to what Rodgers said to us. Like, I mean, Rodgers literally said to one of the most historic franchises in NFL history, I own you. The McCaskey family should be like, take serious offense to be like, no, this isn't happening. We're going to get this right. And
But
to get it right, you got to blow it up and coaching staff gone, all dump all these contracts and rebuild it. That's the only way to do it.
all I know is that when Aaron Rodgers said that, Papa Bear House rolled in his grave, knowing that a Green Bay Packers quarterback just said, "I own you" in the Bears' home stadium. You had to have known that. Like you had to know he rolled in his grave. Just literally the worst. I literally couldn't go on any type of social media after that happened because you couldn't go on there without seeing it. And it was the worst. Even when Tom Brady goes, well, apparently he owns the Bears now. It's like, man, now everyone's just bashing it down our throats. And it's the worst because for a while there, it looked as though the Bears were going up and the Green Bay Packers were going down. And of course, it flipped
Yeah.
as always. So
Rodgers wasn't going to come back to the Packers. It was like, oh, like it looked all is up as a Bears fan, and then it all went down very quickly. So, but to answer your question, it can go two ways, or it could go a third way to where they just stay put, which I would not be surprised either if nothing happened for us at the deadline and we didn't trade for or for win now or for rebuilding, either one, and just stay put and keep it where we are. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened either. But I think clearly both Sauce and Hench are on the side of blowing it up if
yeah.
I was in that position. But
All right. Well,
you also said I don't think you have to totally blow it up.
no.
In regards to non-big contract guys, you still have some pieces. You have, like you said, Roquan, Darnell, Komet, Jalen, the Cadillac Fields, Herbert, and Montgomery. Like you still got pieces, but the big contracts you need to get rid of and get picks.
Or we're going to be stuck. Exactly what I'm trying to get to is that we're going to be stuck with those big contracts and won't be able to make any type of moves in free agency. So there's the negatives of being the Bears. There's also some positive, which is Justin Fields' play, obviously. But that was a half-hour conversation. So let's move on to the next part, which is pretenders and contenders. And I know that both of us are going to say that the Bulls are contenders. So we'll wait for them at the end, just kind of like give the Chicago fans, I don't know, kind of like an appetizer, get a little taste of it. But, with other NBA teams, we're getting towards double-digit games now. Who's your first contending team that's really impressed you so far?
I'm going to start with East or West.
Oh, we're doing both conferences. All right. You know what? I'm feeling East.
Okay, let's start with the East. So you go through the top 8 and then teams that aren't in the top 8. So my contenders that have surprised me and I think will continue to be contenders, the Hornets are going to be contenders. I will fully admit to you, like out of all the Ball brothers, I thought LaMelo was going to be the worst. I did not back when he was in high school. I did not think he was gonna pan out. I was like, who's this guy who's walking up the court and shooting from half court and cherry picking on offense? This kid is not gonna. And he proved me all wrong, bro. Like he's legit, and I think the Hornets will be contenders in regards to playoffs. I think they will be a top 8 team. And to go off of that, I think the Heat are legit.
Yeah.
The Heat are a legit team. Got to see them the other night in person, and they move the ball. They have shooters. They have post play. Bam wasn't even playing, and they just routed them. And it's like they move the ball very well. They shoot well. They can play in the post well. They're a great team. So right off the bat, those are definitely the 2 teams that I'm like contenders, and one more to even out with the third, or odd it out with the third, I guess. I like to work in threes, but the Knicks, I think the Knicks are a serious team. They beat our Bulls. They beat our Bulls. I thought we were going to sneak it out, but they are a legit team this year, and we're kind of getting back slowly but surely to that 90s good basketball a little bit. The Bulls are good. The Knicks are good. The Heat are good. It's eerily starting to get back to that 90s tough basketball. I saw something today. Refs are starting to choke on whistles, letting them play a little bit more now. And you got franchises like the Bulls and Knicks that are good again. It's a good time. That's what basketball needed, man. So those are my three big contenders in the East besides the Bulls. So we'll mention that in a little bit. But what about you? Besides the Bulls, what are three teams that have surprised you in the East and you think are going to be contenders?
I mean, you listed three really good teams looking at these standings, and I agree with all of them. But I think a team that's a contender that people may forget is, the defending champion Bucks don't look great right now because they're riding a 3-game losing streak. But right now they're battling with injuries. I looked at their starting lineup today. It was like Grayson Allen and two Antetokounmpos, the not so great one, and then Giannis, of course. So of course, I mean, they're still going to be a contending team when Drew Holiday comes back, Chris Middleton, and Brook Lopez. So I wouldn't put panic on the Bucks yet. They're still a great team all around. So always got to look out for them. I think that's the only team the Bulls really have to worry about in the Central Division. And then I really like the Heat and the Knicks. You already mentioned them, so I'll give this team some love. The Washington Wizards. I mean, going into the year, like a lot of people are like, they're the Shanghai Sharks because they got Montrez, I can't think of his. Caldwell Pope and Kyle Kuzma, and everyone thought they were going to be bad, but they're 5-2, and they've gotten some good wins. They're 3-0 at home, and it's really shocking. But how many times have we seen guys get traded from the Lakers, and their career gets right back on track to what the people thought they were going to be, like Julius Randle. He's an all-star. Lonzo Ball could be an all-star. D'Angelo Russell was an all-star when he was in Brooklyn. He's still doing good in Minnesota. And then Brandon Ingram. Yeah, there's the other one. I knew I was blanking on one. There's the other one. So it doesn't really shock me that once you get away from LA and you get to a team where you don't feel as much pressure as playing for like a historic franchise like the Lakers, and add on top of that, you're playing with LeBron James, which is every time he plays, it's finals or bust. So you eliminate that pressure on those three guys, and you're playing with Bradley Beal, who's proven time and time again he's a good teammate. The Wizards are going to be a sneaky team. I don't think they're going to be NBA Finals, but I think they could find their way into the playoffs. And you got to be careful because Bradley Beal is when he gets hot, you can't guard him, you can't stop him. So there's my two, and I think my third one, between the Heat and the Knicks, I got to go with the Miami Heat. I just feel like they're really complete since they went out and got Kyle Lowry. He's a great shooter. You can spread the floor out. Duncan Robinson's locked up. Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo add great defense. They got PJ Tucker, who, he's not the best three-point shooter, but he's there to play defense. And he battled with so much grit against Kevin Durant in that playoff series last year when he was with the Bucks. And, you had some dogs on that team. The Heat are going to be a scary team because defense with, as you mentioned, the fouls are now dropping down. A team that plays good defense is going to be tough to beat once you have to face them in a 7-game series come summertime.
100%. So do you want to stay in the East for the
Pretenders? Yeah, go ahead.
So Pretenders for me. So I'm gonna flip this script on you. I think one of your contenders is a pretender. I think the Wizards are pretenders.
Okay. Okay.
First disagreement back on the. It was bound to happen. But I like the team they built. Nothing against any of those. I'm not going to go as far as what some people were saying about them, but I just think there's too many good teams that aren't in the top 8 right now that are going to be eventually. That I just see them falling. They're just on a hot streak right now, and I just see them fall. I mean, I'm looking at right now, not even in the top 8. You have the Hawks, who I think are better than the Wizards. You have the Bucks, who I think are better than the Wizards. The Nets are sitting in the 8th seed, who are better than the Wizards. I think the Hornets are better than the Wizards. So I just think there's a lot of teams that aren't playing the best basketball and aren't healthy right now that are just better than them, and they're just riding a hot streak right now. I could be totally wrong, but that's definitely one of my pretenders. And then another one of the pretenders that's in the top 8 and is above 2 games above 500. I don't think the Raptors are going to be in the top 8 either. I just don't think I there's just nothing that I'm like, yeah, that. I mean, I watched them firsthand. We watched them firsthand against the Bulls. I know it's early, but there's just nobody on there. I mean, there's some guys, but Fred VanVleet can't carry the whole Raptors team. He can't. He basically did that game, and that was the only reason that they were even back in it was because of him. But he can't do that the whole season. So, but those are probably the top 2 for me. In a shocker, I guess, as a pretender, I just don't see how they can succeed with all the turmoil inside their organization, and that's the 76ers.
Yeah.
I just don't. They're 5-2 right now. I don't see that lasting long. Way too much turmoil between those teammates. So that's probably my third in regards to pretenders. I think those guys that they're going to definitely follow out of the top 8 pretty soon here.
All right. So this is going to be interesting because you went against the Wizards, which I respect. You had good reasons. There's no reason why we shouldn't have a normal discussion. But my 3 pretenders, and I'm going to open up with this team. I don't think the Atlanta Hawks are as good as we think they're going to be.
Okay.
I love the combination of Clint Capella and John Collins. I think they're great duos in the paint. But Trae Young was really thriving on those foul calls. Like the whole reason why this was implemented is because Trae Young would come off these screens and just stop and then shoot, and then the guy would run into him and get 3 free throws. His numbers have been down. The Hawks have gotten blown out in games. Like, they just got obliterated by the 76ers by, 30 points.
Mm-hmm.
It's early, though, but, with Trae Young's not scoring 25 points, I don't know if, they can sustain. You still have Herter, that's good. DeAndre Hunter's good. They have some good players. But Trae Young is supposed to be the face of the Hawks. And if he's not averaging somewhere north of 23 to 25 points, I'm not visualizing a scene where the Atlanta Hawks can somehow find their way back to the Eastern Conference Finals like they did last year. Another pretender team that's on here that, they're tied with the Bucks right now, and that's the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think that they're tall. Evan Mobley's been really good. But the difference maker right now for them has been Ricky Rubio, who's just been all of a sudden scoring the ball. And he's never done that before. I just think that eventually also 3-point shooting's down as low as since the 98-99 season. So I think a lot of rust is going on right now. So I think when teams start hitting their threes against other teams, you're going to start seeing a difference between our really good teams and then the bad teams. And I think the Cavaliers.
You don't think that Lowry Legend is going to carry the Cavs to the championship? There's
a reason why the Bulls were like, you know what, this is worth it. We will sacrifice this 7-foot guy to get Derek Jones Jr. from Portland. But you're right, yeah. I just think once people start hitting their threes more consistently, I think that Cleveland's going to find themselves in the fold of being one of the bottom feeders as they normally would be. I still think Evan Mobley's going to win Rookie of the Year, but I just don't see an idea where Cleveland is in the playoffs or even getting into the play-ins.
Gotcha.
And I guess I got one more pretender team. And you know what? I'm going to have to agree with you. I'm going to have to agree on the Philadelphia 76ers. I think that Joel Embiid is the best center in the league. I really do. I think he's better than Jokic because I think Embiid's more athletic and that he can dominate a game. Jokic can, get some good passes and score down low. But once Embiid starts getting his shots, there's no one that can stop him. And for the Philadelphia 76ers, you're right. It's coming down to not having Ben Simmons, who I think is a great defender. He's not a great scorer. And they've gotten an easy schedule to start the season off. And that they've played the Pelicans. They lost to Brooklyn and New York, and they beat the Thunder, Pistons, Hawks, as I mentioned, and then they beat the Blazers. So they have their test is coming up tomorrow against our Bulls. So we'll really get to see if the Philadelphia 76ers are a pretender contending team after the Bulls game. Because, again, I don't think any of these teams are above 500 besides the Knicks, and they lost by 13 points that game.
Yeah, I agree. So before we move to the West, do you want to hit on the Bulls or do you want to wait till the Bulls after the West?
No, we're already in the East. Might as well talk about the Chicago Bulls. Man, what a team!
Bulls. All right.
It's been interesting.
First off, contenders. I think they're contenders. So, but I mean, legitimate. That you said it perfectly. Put the hat on, man. Put it on. You said it perfectly. The word you said they're a what? I spelled it wrong. Jesus, Joe.
When you moved from Manchester and you can't spell anymore.
TEAM. Team, baby. I tell you what, that team plays so well together. There's no you would think at the start of the year on paper, you're like, are names like DeRozan and Levine gonna clash? No, they are playing such good team basketball, and it's perfect for Levine. You saw it last night. Perfect scenario. Levine's cold. You got a guy like DeRozan who can at least keep you close to where once he heats up, we're right back in it. So as in years past, where it's like if Levine's cold, we're losing. That's not the case anymore. And you had the perfect. I love DeRozan. He was a great signing, worth every dime. But the guy who was the perfect signing this offseason was Lonzo Ball, man.
Yeah.
That guy is the unsung hero of this team. He moves he just moves the ball well. He plays great defense. I mean, every aspect of this team is clicking. They don't give up. They're a great team, and I didn't even bring up Vooch yet, who's one of the best centers in the game.
Rolls out of bed and gets 20 and 10.
Yeah.
The thing that I really enjoy about the Bulls is last night they were down 19 at some point against the Celtics, and you and I think you agree with me, is at that point we were just shutting it off because there's no way Zach LaVine was going to be able to get the Bulls single-handedly back into that game. But, it's a team. They didn't give up. They kept fighting. They got some big buckets towards the end. And you know what I really love about Billy Donovan? They showed this stat the other day. Every team he's been with, he's been like a top 13, top 12 defense. The Bulls last year went from what was it? The last year with Boylan, the Bulls were like a 27th worst defense to 11th in a year. And now they're already a top 10 defense in the league. And that's what we said last year. I still remember those conversations. We said, you know what? We think that this could be a good year for the Bulls. They were 10 games below 500. For us, that was a win.
Yeah.
And then we both said, I remember this. I'm going to see if you do. We said, we are one good offseason away from getting back into the playoffs. And what happened? AK goes, I think Sauce and Hensch is right. I think we can go out and get some good guys. Let's go get DeMar DeRozan. Let's go get Lonzo Ball. Let's shock the world and get Alex Caruso from the Lakers. And as much as I loved Laurie, it was a good trade because Derrick Jones Jr., I think as he gets healthy, is going to be a great addition to the bench. He's shooting the ball a lot better. And we haven't even gotten Kobe White back yet.
Yeah, that's good. That dude, he's going to be in the perfect role. That's the perfect role for Kobe White off the bench, man. My one concern about this team, that Patrick Williams injury is a big hit. Not because of his scoring or anything like that, but because of his just flat out size. We are a small team. We were a small team beforehand.
Yeah.
We're a small team now. So we're an even smaller team now, which kind of scares me. And it's something that I have full trust in the front office now. So I have trust in them to at least go get a body for that 4 spot, or it doesn't have to be a starter, but at least just get some more size because right now you got guys that like Tony Bradley and stuff like that coming off the bench. And I mean, no disrespect to them, but if you're going to be contenders, you need to add one more guy. Like Patrick Williams was a guy like Patrick Williams. Like
Right.
that's all. A guy that can rebound, pass, shoot it when he can, but not who Patrick Williams was a very good guy to where he didn't let his ego get in the way, which was exactly what that team needed.
Right.
So go get a guy literally like a carbon copy of Patrick Williams to where he's got size and can guard big guys in the paint. And that's my only concern now is just like we're a significantly smaller team without Patrick Williams.
Yeah, and the one thing is I don't want to take away from that Bulls win yesterday, but I think if the Celtics center's name is Robert Williams, right? Just want to make sure I'm saying that right. If he doesn't get hurt, I don't think the Bulls end up winning that game because there was some rebounds the Bulls got at the end because he wasn't there. And you and I text back and forth because you're at work and I'm at school, and that's the one thing we both agreed on was we need size bad because even with the Knicks were getting these offensive rebounds, leading the second chance points. I think if the Bulls have like a taller power forward, I think the Bulls are still undefeated because they've gotten those 50-50 balls and prevented offensive rebounds against the Knicks. And the reason why the Celtics were dominating us through the first 3 quarters is they were getting second chance looks for Tatum and Brown. And I think, but I don't want to take away from that win, but also like Billy Donovan, that's why you need a good coach. He made a great adjustment at the end. He goes, hey, if Tatum or Brown catch it, double team them. Let's force someone else to beat us. And what happened? No one was hitting shots for them anymore. I think they forced Grant Williams to chuck up threes, and every time he shot a 3, I was like, get the rebound. I don't even care. Get the board and start pushing it up the floor. And also, like, we had how many one-and-dones yesterday because we just lack size. Vooch can get rebounds, but he's not the most athletic center in the league. He's probably some of the best footwork you'll find and some of the best basketball IQ. It's just his biggest issue is he's not athletic and can't jump up with, a Joel Embiid or even like Jokic isn't athletic, but he's still, he can shoot threes, and sometimes Vooch has a hard time guarding guys in the perimeter.
Now, one guy that I don't know how much it would take to get him, but I really think would fit the role of that for us, a guy who can go get rebounds and can kind of do all the little things, is on a struggling team in the Western Conference and hasn't panned out to what everybody thought he was going to be. But is still a solid ball player that his ego would fit this team perfectly, and that's Mr. Marvin Bagley. I think Bagley would be a great fit in that power forward spot. You talk about second chance rebounds. The dude's got one of the best second bounces in the NBA in regards to going to get offensive rebounds and defensive rebounds. You slide him in there, and he can shoot it a little bit. And he doesn't need to score. You just say, hey, man, like, play relaxed. You're not the number one option here. No, there's no expectations. Just go get boards and play some basketball, man. I think that would be a perfect guy to fit in that starting lineup. But like I said, I don't know how. That's just a name that comes to mind. I don't know how realistic it would be or how much the Kings would be asking for him. But I think that's sort of a name or the type of player I'd be looking for.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. And, the Bulls had opportunities to bring in veteran power forwards that can shoot the 3 ball. They can dominate in the mid-range, and they can get rebounds. And both of them ended up on the Nets, and that's LaMarcus Aldridge and Paul Millsap, which I was like, I'd love either of those because both those guys would come in cheap. I think the Bulls could have got LaMarcus Aldridge on a veteran minimum because, you didn't know how his health was going to hold up after he had to retire last year. So I thought for sure that at least one of those guys were going to come to Chicago and want to fill in that power forward role or even come off the bench so that Patrick Williams could play in the starting lineup because, as you mentioned, and I've said it before, is you don't need 4 or 5 scorers on the floor at once. You just need like 3 good scorers, a good facilitator, and a guy that's going to do the hustle plays. Look at the 90s Bulls. You had Jordan and Pippen that could score. Ron Harper played defense. Dennis Rodman got all the boards. And then Luke Longley was a good rebounder. I mean, back then, you only really need 2 scorers because the NBA was much different. But nowadays, you need 3 if you're going to win.
Yeah. And the Bulls have 4 guys that can go get a bucket. And that's why Patrick Williams was so perfect, because he doesn't have a huge ego. And neither, I don't think any of the guys on even our scorers don't have a big ego. But that's why I think this team gels so well together. But yeah, it's been, we talked about it the other night over the phone. I mean, even in our lifetime, the best Bulls team we ever seen, you automatically think of D Rose's Bulls.
Right.
And you look at those starting lineups. Let's look at his. Let's look at it, best chance years. So let's just look at a starting lineup of Rose, Keith Bogans, Luol Deng, Carlos Boozer, and Joakim Noah. Compare that starting lineup to our starting lineup now. Before P. Will got hurt, even now with him hurt, you got Lonzo, Zach, DeMar, P. Will, and Vooch. That has to be it's a better team. It's a better team than that best Bulls team that we ever seen. Flat out, because D Rose had to do everything. He had to do everything. And if he didn't, like no offense to Joakim, but at the time, he was not a guy that was like, I'm gonna pass it in the post and he can go get me a bucket. And I am one of the biggest Joakim Noah fans ever. No slight to him, but Vooch can go get a bucket better than Joakim can. He can't rebound. You take away rebounds and stuff, but we talk. Our NBA now is a lot different. You need, like you said, you need 3 scorers. Vooch is a better scorer than Joakim Noah. Power forward. Okay, I mean, you compare Carlos Boozer and P. Will. You can't really compare them, but small forward. I love Luol Deng, but DeMar's a better scorer than Luol Deng is. Keith Bogans and Zach LaVine. Jesus, it's not even close.
Right, Keith Bogans, right?
Not even close. Keith Bogans was a knockdown shooter. So
Keith Bogans and the GOAT.
Yeah. And then you go to Derek. I mean, obviously Derek was better than Lonzo in regards of being a scorer, but you just have more, like, LaVine and DeRozan and Vooch. Those are 3 legit scorers, to where Rose was the only scorer, the only pure scorer, to where it was like, we need a bucket and he can go get you one. As to where now it's like, we need a bucket, LaVine can get me one, DeRozan can get me one, Vooch can get me one.
Right.
That's what you need. And we've needed that, and the Bulls have needed that for years, and we've never had it. Because then you go to when Jimmy Butler started to come into his own, was when Derek was dealing with a lot of injuries, and they only got to play like 1 year together where Jimmy was in his own. And then they traded Derek, unfortunately, and then Jimmy, when he was the star, the best guy that they paired with Jimmy Butler was Dwayne Wade and Rajon Rondo. Jesus, like, what?
Hey, don't forget about Pau Gasol past his prime.
Pau Gasol past his prime. Like, the Bulls have never had 3 legit scorers, which has been, I mean, that's been said in the NBA since Jimmy was like in his prime with the Bulls. Like, if the Bulls are going to do anything, I think that was even said when D Rose was in his prime with us. Like, you needed, what made it happen was what? LeBron moved to the Heat, and they had 3 legit scorers. So the only way to beat the Heat was to have 3 legit scorers.
Right.
And that's when it started the NBA, and the Bulls have been through that since and haven't had it till now. So it's nice to see. It's really nice to see.
Yeah, it's also
a lot of fun.
As much as we love offense and getting buckets in the NBA, the defense has been phenomenal. I love Lonzo on defense. Alex Caruso is phenomenal.
Yeah.
When LaVine Yeah, now you need the headband. But
Like,
when Levine first got to Chicago, he was just viewed as a dunker and a good 3-point shooter. He's getting better at defense. Everyone wants to win. And that's what I kind of talked about yesterday is everyone on this team has a chip on their shoulder because at one point or another, they were told they weren't good enough. When Lonzo went to the Lakers, he's a bust, traded to New Orleans. DeMar DeRozan, he's been the most underrated shooting guard in the league since he went to San Antonio. Zach LaVine, like I said, Zach LaVine was, no, he's just a dunker. That's all he's going to be able to do. And then Vucevic, it's like, all right, well, I mean, he's a good scorer and a good rebounder, but that's about it. He's not going to win you a championship. Caruso, I mean, I don't even think he was he a draft pick? He go in the second round or he got undrafted?
I need to see that now. I don't even know.
And he had to work his way up from like the G League, or maybe it was the D League at that point, to get on the Lakers. And Billy Donovan, he kind of just got left for dead in Oklahoma City when they traded everyone away. This is a Bulls team. He was undrafted. Okay, I didn't know if he was like a late second round pick or undrafted. You have so many guys that just want to win and put everything out have on that court. And how many times have we seen other teams that are just like, you know what? We have some of the best players in the league that are getting paid. They don't want to get hurt. No. Everyone on this Bulls team is going to lay out for basketballs, battle for 50-50 balls, and play defense. It's not just back to the days go defense. We're going to go score again. I love to see it. Love this Bulls team, and it should be a fun season. And we're only 7 games in.
Yeah, we're 7 games in, but it feels like we're 30 games in, and I'm just pumped. I haven't been this thing like to where if I don't have work on a night and the Bulls are playing, I'm like it's must watch TV. I have to turn on the Bulls, and I'm excited to turn on the Bulls. Like it's not like I'm just watching because I'm a Bulls fan. I have to watch it. It's like, yeah, Bulls basketball is on tonight, baby. And Stacey King, man, he deserves it.
He does.
King, I love listening to that, man. He's so much fun to listen to with a good basket. There's nothing like a packed Madhouse on Madison with Stacey King with the best calls that he's got, man. There's nothing like it.
Well, one of my favorite things is that in case someone ever asks you, like, how loyal are you? Just take out your phone, type in 2015, 2016 Bulls lineup with Paul Zipser and Felicio down low. I'm this loyal. And they're like, you know what? He's pretty loyal. That team was horrible. And he sat there and watched every game.
Yeah.
So it's great. I love being in this position with the Bulls. The NBA is better when Chicago is good at basketball.
And Chicago loves it too because we just got the other day at work, we just got top attendance in the NBA, and the Bulls are number 1.
Are they number 1?
In the NBA.
Beautiful.
I mean, Chicago, whatever sports team is good, Chicago, that's what town Chicago is, man. When the Blackhawks were good, it was a hockey town. When the Bears are good, it's a football town. When the Sox or Cubs are good, it's a baseball town. When the Bulls are good, it's a Bulls town. So if you're good, Chicago will show up for you.
Well, I mean, you're talking about how loyal Chicago fans are. Big shout out to the Chicago Sky for winning the WNBA championship. That place was packed with Chance the Rapper in attendance. Like he was Drake for the Raptors. And I love to see that because that tells you if the Bulls are good. Can you imagine what that place is going to be like when playoff time comes around?
It's going to be hype, man. It's going to be hype.
All right, we'll end on that note with the Bulls. So let's go to the West. We can make this one a little bit quicker because we are getting to an hour. Just give me your brief run-through of your 3 contenders and then kind of like a brief summary on why you're picking these teams.
All right, so my contenders, I've said since day one, I have faith in Steph Curry and that basketball team and Steve Kerr. So my Warriors are definitely a contender, and they're doing this without Clay too. So contender.
I'm with you on that one, so we can get that one out of my way. I was going Golden State. The 5-1. Steph's looked really good. He's leading the league in points. Clay's coming back, and then James Wiseman also going to add some size. He'll be back right around the corner. I think January is when Clay's coming back.
Yeah. So contenders for sure. Jazz contenders. They just shoot the crap out of the ball. they have so many shooters. I don't, and Donovan Mitchell's a beast. I just don't see them not being a contender, and our Bulls beat them. So shows how much contenders we are. Anyway, third contender. Who do I want to go with? I mean, you could say the Lakers. You could say, I think the Nuggets are going to be contenders still. They. When does Jamal Murray come back? Do you know?
I'm not sure, because I remember his ACL injury was like mid to late in the season, and that can take up to like a year. So that could be like mid season at that point.
He had a full fledged workout out at the game the other day, to where he was out there for a while, moving around pretty good. But I'll put a pin in that one. That's a contender for me if Jamal Murray comes back healthy this year. If he does, they're legit and they're contenders. So those are my three.
Okay, so I already mentioned my first contender was Golden State. I can't believe how depleted the West look right now. I didn't even get a chance to look at the standings until now. I'm going to have to go with you on Utah, because Donovan Mitchell is a great player. Rudy Gobert is one of the best defenders in the league. And then you add like a Bogdanovich and a Joe Ingles. It's a great team to watch. And right now they're missing Mike Conley. So when he comes back, they're going to be even more dangerous. So I'm going to have to agree with you on your first two, Golden State and Utah. And, I think another team I really like is I think this team's going to get back on track. This is going to be the Phoenix Suns, the defending Western Conference champions. They're off to a slow start at 2-3. But usually when teams come from an NBA Finals run, they have to play some tough teams. So I expect them to get back on track and make their way back into the playoffs. So I need 3 pretenders now.
3 pretenders. The Kings, they're a pretender. There's no way they're going to be a top 8 team.
I agree.
They're just not good enough. Flat out, just not good enough. This is going to surprise some people. They're top 3 right now. I don't think the Mavericks. I think the Mavericks are pretenders. They just don't have enough. Luka hasn't even looked that. Luka's been struggling to start this season. I don't think he's going to struggle all year, but they just don't have enough, in my opinion, to be contenders in the West once everybody gets rolling. I mean, you look at the bottom barrel of the West right now. The Trailblazers, I think, are better than the Mavs. The Suns are better than the Mavs. That's just 2 teams to list right there. And then last pretender, I mean, it would be easy to say the Timberwolves just because they're in the top 8. I mean, I guess I'll go with the Timberwolves, but I mean, the Clippers are 2-4, so I can't really say they're pretenders because I think they're going to stay that way.
It's really hard to pick against the Clippers when they don't have Kawhi for the year.
Exactly. So I guess, yeah, the Timberwolves, I just don't, I mean, I don't know. They also could be like very sneaky. Like looking at that Western Conference, like you said, it looks depleted. Because I mean, if you go through that, the Suns turn it around. Okay, let's say the Suns turn it around, and maybe the Blazers turn around. Then you have a team then you have the Jazz that's in the top 8, the Warriors. I don't think the Mavs will. So then the Lakers, the Grizzlies, the Nuggets, and that's 5 teams. And then you say the Suns get added in there. So that's only 6 teams. The Timberwolves do have a sneaky good. I mean, you look at some of the names on the roster: Malik Beasley, Pat Bev, D'Angelo, Cat, and then what's his name? The draftee from last year.
You're talking about
Anthony Edwards.
Ant-Man.
What was that?
The Ant-Man.
So that could be a sneaky team in the West. So I can only really list 2, I guess, of pretenders: Mavericks and Kings. What about you?
Well, I'm gonna make this interesting. I'm gonna agree with you on the Kings because the Kings are the Kings. It's kind of like we say the Lions are the Lions. Like eventually they're gonna fall apart at some point or another. I'm gonna agree with you on Dallas. I think with Kristaps' contract, it'll be really hard for them to get anything done. And Luka can only do so much on this team. And, the Mavericks want to be a three-point shooting team, and they're just not that. Their percentages have always been bad. And I also just don't think Jason Kidd is a good coach. But here's my hot take, and it's not a sports show until someone says something stupid that could be right. And my pretending team is the LA Lakers.
Okay, so when you say pretending not making the playoffs, or just
pretending that is not being finals contenders.
Okay.
The West isn't as strong as it used to be, and people don't realize that. I just don't like the dynamic of this team. I'm not going against LeBron. I've bet against LeBron my entire life. Sometimes it's panned out, sometimes it hasn't. But for this Lakers team, execs are openly coming out and going, "Yeah, we're not scared of them. We're just not," because it's not LeBron and AD as much as AD is injury prone and he's still a good player. But they went out and they got Westbrook, and they gave up how much for him? And how is it going to work when LeBron and Westbrook are both guys that need the ball in their hands to be good? Because LeBron has always been a triple-double guy. Russell Westbrook has made a living getting triple-doubles. Carmelo Anthony, he's been phenomenal, but how long is this going to sustain until guys are realized, Melo can hit the three ball now. We need to start playing on the perimeter. And I saw this team blow a 26-point lead against the Oklahoma City Thunder. I don't even care if LeBron wasn't even in the game. There is no excuse to blow a 26-point lead against the Thunder, who are more draft picks than roster players. I've never heard an exec come out and say, "Yeah, we're not afraid of LeBron James." Could you imagine an exec in the 90s come out and going, "Yeah, we're just not afraid of Jordan. We're just not, because his team's not good." And it just doesn't happen. Where the best player of his generation is no longer feared. Kind of like at Kobe's end of his run with the Lakers. It was kind of like, all right, well, they just paid how much money to get Luol Deng here? There's no way they're going to be good. And they weren't. They weren't afraid of the Lakers. They weren't afraid of Kobe, because Kobe could go out and score 40 and still lose by 30.
Yeah.
And that's what I think this Lakers team could end up being, because their bench is older. Dwight Howard's not the same Dwight Howard. I just don't see the hype in the Lakers.
Yeah,
I just don't.
You're a good salesman, man. I'm hopping on. I agree, man. I know it's a hot take, and I know a lot of people. I mean, there's also the argument you combat it with, we're 7 games in, so there's 7.
You're right.
So who knows? You're also talking about a lot of good IQ-minded basketball players in Westbrook, AD, and LeBron, to where something might just click for them 20 games in, and then they go on a historic run and just destroy teams in the West. Because those are 3 great basketball players. And I mean, they do have dudes on the bench to where I'm just like, sometimes I just look through the roster and I'm like, when did they get him? And how did they get him? Like Kent Bazemore, Avery Bradley, Wayne Ellington's out right now, but Malik
Monk. Yeah.
Malik Monk is legit. Kendrick Nunn, he was legit for the Heat. I mean, Rondo's not really anything. Trevor Ariza, you just go through this. DeAndre Jordan, you just go through this list, and it's just like, when did this name get on the Lakers? So, it could also flip, but I can seriously see it just being a thing to where you have too many not head cases, but too many egos to where it just doesn't work out.
Well, the thing I base off the Westbrook LeBron experience is the LeBron Lonzo experience. You remember how when LeBron went to LA, everyone was so hyped to see them two play because both of them are playmakers? Well, it doesn't really work when there's one basketball. Lonzo, you can compare Lonzo and Rondo, young Lonzo and Rondo to each other because both of Westbrook to each other because both of them are triple-double threats. They're not going to go out and score 50 points, but they're going to get 12, 13 points, 11 assists, a couple, 10 rebounds, and a couple of steals. It didn't work out for Lonzo when he was there with LeBron because it went so poorly. Next year, he was going to New Orleans.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying is what I'm basing it off of. And you're right. It's only 7 games in, and I all respect for this Lakers team, a lot of great guys that we watch in our generation. It's just how much can you expect the 19th year LeBron to carry once playoff time comes around? Because that's what happened last year. AD went down. They didn't have a terrible roster, but it wasn't good. And they got beat up by the Suns. And that's all it took.
I mean, you look at not making it out of the West. Like I said, when we moved into the West and our pretenders, contenders, I've said since the beginning, you watch out for the Warriors, bro. We talk about TEAM. I spelled it right that time. We talk about team. The Warriors are a team, and you have guys like Curry and Thompson and Green who've been there before and know how to play on a good team. They scare me more than the Lakers, man. Like, they know how to operate a team, and they have stone cold killers behind the line, man. Like, behind the line, those guys can shoot it, and Clay's not even back yet. Like, they're dangerous, man, and I could see them starting that dynasty that we saw for so many years, to where, the Lakers just can't get by them. Because, I mean, I don't care how many names you put on a team. It all looks great on paper, but if you can't do it on the court, you ain't getting it.
Who cares? Yeah. So, yeah, that was a good NBA talk. But we're going to conclude on something dear to me. Today is November 2nd, 2021, which marks the 5th anniversary of the Chicago Cubs breaking the 108-year curse in Game 7 of the World Series against the Cleveland Indians. So I thought we shout it out.
Let me interview you. Just a couple quick questions to round it out.
All right.
All right. So, Game 7, World Series 5 years ago. Where are you at? Who's with you?
Where I'm at is in our downstairs living room with Mom and Dad. Shout out to Mom for making Dad a Cubs fan. My grandparents, of course, Grandpa and Dad took me to the first Cubs game. And the funny story is my sister was also downstairs, and she was doing math homework. But every time she looked up from her math homework, something bad would happen. So there's me in my Cubs gear yelling, "Keep doing your homework." And she did it. She was a champ. She did her homework till like 11 o'clock at night until the final out was made. So shout out to the sister for realizing that superstitions do happen in World Series games.
Oh, yes. To build off of that, Game 7 starts, first pitch happens. In Sauce's gut, what's brewing? Are the Cubs breaking the curse, or is the curse of the Billy Goats and Steve Bartman and the Black Cats still happening, and the Cubs aren't winning a World Series? What's going through the gut? What's the gut instinct in the Sauce household?
The gut instinct was we won 2 straight games. We've seen this one more. It's just that the biggest issue is going to get around Corey Kluber, who was just an absolute menace at that point, and then Andrew Miller in the bullpen. I remember that day being so long because it was, of course, on a weekday, so I had class in high school. So you start early and you end late, and everyone was like, "Oh, like go Cubs!" And when the first pitch happened, it was surreal though, because it was kind of like, win or lose, I'm proud of this team, but it'd be great to win and finally break this curse and hand it off to the Cleveland Indians. And you say first pitch happens, it was going to Dexter Fowler, and 3 or 4 pitches later, that ball goes over the wall for a home run, and that kind of helped the nervousness die down a bit. And luckily, some breaks happened our way, especially the rain delay and the Ben Zobrist down the left field line. And I can happy to say,
stop it.
Luckily, 5 years, I can still say that the Cubs are the champions of the 2016 season.
All right, 2 more questions to round it out. One. The first one, rain delay happens. First, it's a 2-parter. What are you thinking when the rain delay is going on?
Thank God. Thank God they can go back into the dugout and recuperate, because they just gotten the extras. They just blown the lead from the Rajai Davis home run, which I thought you were going to ask, like what was going through my mind when that happened.
Well,
I boo booed him. I saw him play with the Mets against the Tigers in New York, and I booed him. No joke.
That ball, he's choked up. Probably if this is the bat, probably the most choked up I've ever seen a player on a freaking bat before. And he swings at that ball off the bat. Did you know it was gone or no?
I did.
You knew it was gone. What were you?
I knew it was gone, and the only thing I was praying for is it went foul. But then I saw it hit that camera, and the first thing I thought of was, Joe Madden, you idiot. Honestly, because he had used him the day before for no reason. He'd pulled Kyle Hendricks way too early and got to John Lester, and they were expecting Chapman to go 2 innings of work in the 8th and the 9th, and I just didn't see it happening the way he used them the entire postseason run. So I blamed Madden, and I still say to this day, luckily for Joe Madden, Ben Zobrist is one of the clutch hitters in baseball history, or I just think Joe Madden would have been chased out of Wrigleyville when he came back from Game 7.
Absolutely. And to round it out, obviously, last question goes down in every baseball fan's mind. If you win a World Series, that's the last out. I mean, it's a memory that you'll never forget for the rest of your life. The last out in baseball is something, it's just so magical compared to any other sport. I mean, in majority of other sports, Super Bowls, basketballs, NBA final, you kind of know who's going to win before that last buzzer sign goes off. In baseball, you don't know. So ground balls hit to Bryant. He's got a grin on his face while he's fielding it. What's going through your mind when the ball's hit? What's going through your mind when Rizzo catches it? And what was the first thing that you did when he put that ball in his pocket, Sauce?
Yeah, that's a big question. Luckily Montero got a big hit to make it 8-6, and then Davis came up clutch again, drove in a run, made it 8-7, and then this guy comes up, Mike Martinez. I don't think he's on at bat the entire postseason. It's this chopper, and I'm like, please just make this play. Like, already getting out of my seat, Bryant gathers and makes a great throw while slipping. His right foot slips because of the rain. Rizzo catches the ball, and I just think every emotion, every weight of, like, I'm not gonna single out Sox fans, but like every fan that gave us the Cubs will never win. You guys have been waiting 100 years, still haven't won. How are you still a fan? It was just like that wait had finally ended. And all the pain that we've suffered, like my grandparents went through the 69 collapse, the 84 collapse. My parents were at the Bartman game and saw it firsthand. And to finally say that we won a World Series and be able to do it with, my grandparents and my parents, that was even better because we've been through it all, and I wouldn't have wanted to be around any other people. So,
the first person you hugged?
Oh man, I don't know if I hugged anyone. I think it might have been my dad, but I think I cried with my mom because she grew up the Cubs fan, because my dad moved from Pennsylvania in the 80s, but my mom been there since birth, and she grew up watching the Cubs on WGN every afternoon. So she was the original fan. I gave her the credit, but it was of course Dad and Grandpa that pushed towards the baseball and the Cubs fandom. And you have to give a shout out to the grandma that listened to all my Cubs rants when they were doing bad, or like if something bad happened, or if I got excited. So all of them did their roles, and we got it. We got our championship. We got the one. That's all we wanted. And hopefully we can experience one more going into the future.
Well, man, like, even as a Sox fan, I mean, I can sit here and I mean, I'm very happy that you got to experience something like that.
Since you guys got to in 2005.
Exactly. So, it's hard to not be romantic about baseball. So
exactly.
I love hearing the answers to those questions. I mean, like I said, even as a Sox fan, it's hard not to smile seeing how excited you get telling stories that you'll never forget that.
Oh no, I still have the newspapers, and I think I'm gonna pass them off to my kids, and the kids can keep passing them on through the generations until hopefully another generation can add a Cubs World Series newspaper to that collection. So, Well, I guess that was a good note to end on the return of Sauce and Hensch. It felt good.
Baby.
The chemistry is still there.
Oh, you definitely feel it, baby. It's just like an alley-oop off the glass, finish the slam, like the Dwayne Wade, LeBron James picture. It's exactly what it looks like right now, man.
Absolutely perfect.
It's great to be back. I'm pumped. Doing this podcast with Sauce it always puts a smile on my face. I hope whoever listens to it, whoever you may be, wherever you are, I hope it puts a smile on your face. It's great to be back. We got some good ones coming because we got a lot of stuff that we haven't talked about.
It's true. So I guess thanks for listening. And I guess because even though they're doing bad, we always close out Sauce and Hensch episodes with how about them Bears?
How about them Bears blown up, baby?
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.